Welcome back to Satoshi Cryptomoto, Crypto, Coffee, and Commentary. Toilet paper economy. At Satoshi Cryptomoto, I boost your peer-to-peer financial empowerment within a unified global community. We're going to talk about toilet paper economy. What does that mean? I would like to say first, as far as coffee, this is what I'm drinking. A friend of mine just came back from Guatemala, and that's what he brought back. Huehue Tenango, Guatemala. This stuff is really, really smooth, I must say. The way we do it here at the bunker, Satoshi Cryptomoto's bunker, brew up the coffee on a drip or a pour over, and then we put cinnamon in there, and then put a few drops of honey. Absolutely. No sugar, you guys, no sugar. No way, no way. So, toilet paper economy. I've got 7 or 8 points I want to bring up, having to do with number 1, the petrodollar, number 2, inflation, 3, MNUCHIN'S comments, 4, QE4, 5, stock market versus cryptos, 6, gold, and 7, Bretton Woods. And what really caused me to make this video was a discussion I had a little earlier today with my wife. She was talking with a very close friend in Dubai, and we were having a conversation whether or not we should bring that person here to the U.S. or that person stay in Dubai or that person go to their homeland. And it sparked a very detailed conversation having to do with the global economic, the state that we're in because of this, this that everybody's talking about. And so here is some of the dynamics of the conversation. Hey, the passport used to be 1,000 dirham for 3 months. That's about $225. Now, for that person to stay in Dubai, they got to pay 2,000 dirham to stay there for 3 months. That's about $550. And it sparked this reality of uncertainty. One thing that markets absolutely hate is uncertainty. And that is one of the biggest reasons why there is so much havoc being wreaked in not just the U.S. stock market, but markets and national economies all over the world. But we had to discuss the reality that, hey, if that person stays there for 3 months, well, after 3 months, well, the passport might be 4,000. I mean, no one really knows. But Dubai is taking advantage of, if you could call it that, they are definitely right. They doubled the price of the passport. And when you think of what's going on around the world with toilet paper, I actually had a roll of toilet paper in my hand, a new package at Wally World in my hand. I looked at it and I said, no, I don't want that kind. I put it down and I walked 3 steps and came back and it was gone and there was no more. I mean, I was that close. We're doing fine with what we have, but yeah, it is absolutely incredible. But the long and short of it is we had to make a decision based on the reality of, look, if we're going to make a decision right now, even if it's for 90 days, let's make this decision based on the probability of it being a year or even 2 years. Because in 3 months, it could be way, way different. So I'm going to bring up just the notion of the petrodollar. That's really not a certainty. We're not sure if the petrodollar is going to continue to exist. We've heard a lot of news in the Middle East about OPEC, or specifically Saudi Arabia, and what's going on there is kind of an argument between Russia and how they're going to price or compete in price with the dollar. But in 1971, the petrodollar was launched or created, that system, and it has to do with an agreement that Henry Kissinger negotiated with Saudi Arabia to provide them with military might as they would agree to price the exchange, the oil in dollars. And with goods denominated in dollars, what that afforded America was seigniorage. SEIGNIOR-age, seigniorage. And what that is a great source of revenue for the USA, because for countries to purchase oil or other goods, they'd have to first exchange their national currencies into dollar, and the U.S. would get a cut off of that every single one of those exchanges. And so with the petrodollar's continued existence up in air, it's really, as I mentioned, markets hate uncertainty. 2, inflation. What is inflation? It is when currency creation, or the currency in the markets, the currency supply in the market rises, and it causes prices to rise because of a reduction in purchasing power. And this is a virtual certainty, and the extent of it could launch into, even in America, hyperinflation, which is, they'd start talking about that if inflation goes to 50%. Just be aware of the possibility of that, most definitely. Mnuchin came out with some comments yesterday, and he was talking about an immediate response of about $1 trillion influx into the nation's economy with a cap. They're thinking of about $4 trillion, and that should be able to withstand the problems with this that's existent here in the globe, around the globe. But I would not be surprised at all if the influx, this monetary stimulus known as QE, quantitative easing, this is quantitative easing 4. And QE 4, by the time we're out of the woods in this, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it would cause an influx of over $4 trillion. That's how everything always works. So most definitely that'll cause some inflation. Number 5 is, how is the stock market doing versus cryptos? And it's an exceedingly important thing to be considering here, because since 2017, many countries and nations are, and practically every single Fortune 500 company is using or integrating blockchain technology, and then therefore some sort of tokenization or nuclear economies, or even stacking up sats, buying Bitcoin and or other large XRP or Ethereum Litecoins to hedge their economies. Bulgaria, for the first time ever in history, is a country which has, at one time, I think they still do have more Bitcoin well, not now. I think when Bitcoin was over 10,000 per Bitcoin, then they realized a value of more Bitcoin than gold holdings in that country. It's phenomenal. But with the stock market plummeting, and there has been a day where it was the largest sell-off in stock market history, except for a day in 1987 and a day in 1929. It was on a Friday, I believe it was 1 week ago. Would that be March 13th or 12th, right in there, where they had the largest sell-off in stock market history, except for 2 dates. So there's obviously, most definitely, very much instability in the market. And a tipping point in the economy came when, with these Fed proposals of reduction in the prime rate, or the federal funds rate of a 0.5 point first, and then when they dropped it a full percentage point on a Sunday about a week ago, the market as a whole just shrugged it off. And it really was a tipping point in the global markets, where we saw the market was answering as a whole that, hey, the Fed policy doesn't really matter that much. We're still going to sell off. And we also saw that Bitcoin dropped quite a bit, up to as much as almost 70%. But the most interesting and important dynamic about this, and what we saw, is that there was a lot of institutional investors in Bitcoin. We've known that for a long time. But when they had to sell off, what happened is retail investors like you and I most definitely were the ones that bought up that dip. And what happened over 2 weeks, about 2.5 weeks, there was a huge influx in the number of wallets that contained 1/10 of a Bitcoin or more. It's up to almost 3 million Bitcoin wallets now, which have 1/10 of a Bitcoin or more. And so with that blockchain information, is very, very good ammo as far as information and data, that it's undeniable, which shows a huge dynamic that the Bitcoin in specific looks very, very good as far as a resilient economy. So really be thinking about that. Highly recommend you consider that. That is just an obvious dynamic that we should consider when we're considering inflation. Number 6, gold. Infamously, August 15th, 1971, Richard Nixon took the U.S. off of the gold standard. It signaled the first time in global history for the previous 4,000 years that in a global economy, as large or small as they may have been over the last 4,000 years, first time in history that these economies were not pegged to a metal. And that's been going on for 50 years. And what's happened is, beginning with America, they printed money, creating all this debt that they sold out to the rest of the globe, and other nations copied that. Every single nation on earth now has a central bank that's not owned by the nation. Hello. That is very, very important, not well-known fact. Let me see if I can remember which 4 nations do own their own central bank. Iran, Cuba, Turkey, I believe, and gosh, I can't remember which is the other one. But anyway, for sure it's Iran and Cuba. And what that means is the global economy is pegged essentially to central banks, which are owned by a family. If you don't believe that, go down the rabbit hole for yourself. So it's an insidious sounding fact that does not bode well for our consideration when we're considering about inflation. In 1944, there was the Bretton Woods system, and 44 allied nations met as a group in New Hampshire. There was over 700 delegates that met for almost 3 weeks from July 1st to July 22nd in 1944. And they came up with an agreement known as the Bretton Woods system. And from 1944 up until 1971, the global economic had very, very few banking bankruptcies. After Nixon took us off the gold standard, wow, debt has just, we can't even count for it. We can't even calculate it now globally. Some esteemed economists guess that the global debt is, I was going to say 500 trillion, then you go to quadrillion, 2 to 3 quadrillion possibly. So I really have no idea. I mean, I'm not going to state even an opinion on that, but just one thing to consider as far as what are you and I going to do with our own nuclear economy within, for ourselves, our loved ones, our family. And so having said all that, I just remembered, oh man, I still got to pay for my coffee. Here you go. Okay, thank you. Just take 2. Okay. Here, take one for yourself too. Thank you very much. Hashtag love all, serve others. I wish you well. I wish you wealth. I wish you health. And until next time, peace.